Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again today with another video, back with another recap of the NBA games from today. Today's video wasn't even going to happen if it wasn't for the final game of the slate. It was pretty much all blowouts, and then the Wizards and Lakers decided to have an absolute classic of a game for absolutely no reason, way late at night. And so here I am talking to you about the game. So congrats, you guys get a bonus video because the Wizards, for some reason, every time they play contenders, decide to play like the 96 Bulls. I don't know what it is, man. It was the same thing that happened when the Wizards put the Nets a couple weeks ago, where they just for some reason went off Beal and Westbrook, which was again the case tonight. In my opinion, the story of the night was Russell Westbrook. He hit the game-winning shot, or the shot that put them up by 3 points. They were up one inbound to Russell Westbrook. He hit an and one. We won't talk about the free throw that he missed or the air ball layup earlier in the game. We won't talk about either of those things. But what we will talk about is how Russell Westbrook had 30 points, near a triple-double. He was 1 assist shy. He had 13 rebounds, I believe. Just a fantastic game from Russell Westbrook. He's finally starting to look healthy, and the Wizards now are on a 5-game winning streak, a team that really looked kind of dead in the water for a while. I'll be honest, I was really high on the Wizards to start the season. I thought they were going to be like a 7-8 seed. I thought they would give some team hell in the first round before being knocked off, just because a lot of their pieces were young. Like, you've got a Denny Avdija, who I'm pretty high on. I think he has a lot of potential, but he's pretty young. Thomas Bryant, I thought was going to come in, be a most improved player candidate. Unfortunately, he did end up getting hurt. I actually talked about him in one, I think it was my second video ever. I talked about how him and a couple other guys were all going to have really big breakout seasons. Unfortunately, Thomas Bryant ended up going out for the season, in addition to Markelle Fultz, who I also talked about in that video, ended up going out for the season. So apparently I just cursed everyone that I talked about in that video. Mitchell Robinson is even out now with a significant injury. We won't talk about that anymore. But yeah, so Russell Westbrook, he dealt with some injuries, and this team's finally starting to hit its stride. Beal has been playing great all season. Beal played great again tonight. I think he had like 37. He had some clutch buckets in overtime. He kind of took over in overtime. The fourth quarter, he didn't have a single field goal, and it was kind of starting to look bad for them. Westbrook played really well. He made some clutch shots. He threw some clutch dimes. Bertans bricked threes from everywhere on the court. I think he only made like one or two. He's got to be better if this Wizards team wants to meet their full potential, which kind of looks like they're starting to a little bit, at least whatever their potential is now that they're dealing with some injuries. Like, Ish Smith is out for a little bit. He's a really good backup point guard, although Raul Neto played really good minutes tonight. Without Thomas Bryant, who unfortunately, like I said, is out for the season. Robin Lopez and Alex Len just really aren't great replacements for him. They're not very good. They're serviceable, I guess, but against teams with dominant bigs, you're going to get murdered. If the Lakers had Anthony Davis tonight, it probably wouldn't have been pretty for the two of them. And yeah, the Wizards took advantage of the Lakers not having Anthony Davis. They got a really big win. They're only 2 games out now of a playoff spot. And like I said, this team seemed like it was dead in the water for a little bit. I made a video like a month ago talking about how I thought the Wizards were screwed because Scott Brooks wasn't going to get fired. Bertans was out, or not Bertans was out. Thomas Bryant was out for the season. Beal kind of looked like he wanted out. Westbrook was dealing with injury and it seemed like he was declining, although I always thought he was injured. I just thought this team was struggling. I thought this team was kind of screwed, and they've completely turned it around. Absolutely to their credit. They've been great in this past stretch of games, and the Lakers now have lost 4 or 5, which is these two teams, like I mentioned earlier, kind of been on opposite sides of the spectrum this season, are trending in the opposite directions. The Lakers without Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder, they just don't have enough people to create their own shot. If LeBron's not dishing to someone or creating a shot for someone, they're not doing it themselves. Like maybe Montrezl Harrell, he had a great game tonight. He put up 26 points, but outside of him, no one's really creating their own shot on this team. They're just waiting for LeBron to dribble the ball around until that he, at the last second, throws someone a dime. They end up bricking the 3 in the corner or whatever. I think LeBron had 13 assists tonight, and it felt like he could have had like 30 if teammates just would have hit shots, and they just couldn't. They really need Anthony Davis back. I don't think that's anything crazy to say that they aren't a contender without Anthony Davis. That's obvious. This team is stacked when they're healthy, but Dennis Schroeder and Anthony Davis, in my opinion, are probably their second and third most critical pieces to this team's success. And so LeBron's doing all he can. He did have a couple moments, I guess, where you could say he choked. Although putting up like 37 points, I don't think constitutes a choke. He missed the game-tying 3 at the end of the game. Given it was a tough look, and he missed the free throw to try and give them a 1-point lead before heading into overtime. He may have, like, if he had made that, maybe this team wins, maybe the Wizards drop a different play and hit a shot, but this loss was not on LeBron James, it was on the supporting cast. LeBron, like I said, had a couple moments where he could have made some shots. They just didn't fall, but the rest of the game, they were absolutely falling. The Lakers were just abusing the Wizards' paint defense all game. but the duo of Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal is just too much. I love seeing Russell Westbrook succeed. I love seeing Russell Westbrook shut haters up like he did in Oklahoma City for so many years. He's my favorite player of all time. Anytime he has a great performance, you're going to hear me talk about it. So, shout out to the Wizards. They deserve a lot of credit for all the hate and all the crap they've been getting all season. Like, it's been bad. Everyone has talked about the Wizards, and Wizards fans have had to sit there and endure it, and they're finally starting to turn around. Like I said, they're only 2 games out of the playoffs, and there are a lot of vulnerable teams ahead of them, a lot of volatile teams, and I would not be surprised if the Wizards make the playoffs. I think it's very possible. I think if Beal and Westbrook continue to play up to this level, I'd honestly be kind of surprised if they didn't. So, shout out to the Wizards. And then outside of that game, like I said, the rest of the games are kind of just blowouts. I'll talk about a few of them here. I'll talk about a little bit of each of them, I guess. Heat Thunder game, I'll go into that one a little bit more because that's my favorite team. Obviously, you could tell by the Thunder banner, you could tell by the SGA jersey, and the story of today's game is that Gilgeous-Alexander should absolutely be an all-star. In my opinion, if you follow me on Twitter, if you've watched any of my YouTube videos, I don't think I need to tell you that because I have made it abundantly clear where I stand on that debate. I think he's played up to an all-star caliber level. Even if he doesn't make the all-star team, I hope that people are recognizing that he is an all-star level player. I think if not this season, then starting next season, he's going to be a perennial all-star player. He's going to just make rosters over and over and over again. And his development into one of the most efficient scorers, not even just like efficient young scorers, one of the most efficient scorers, like statistically, in the entire NBA at age 22, when he's surrounded by very little threats. Like Lou Dort's been pretty better than expected this season, but he's still struggling. Darius Bazley's really had kind of a slump in this part of the season. He has his ups and downs. He just hasn't found his shot quite yet. Al Horford's been pretty good, but it's not like elite level options like some of the other young point guards in the league have. He doesn't have like a John Collins like a Trae Young has. He doesn't have like a Buddy Hield or like a Marvin Bagley, a Harrison Barnes, like solid players who can knock down their shots like a De'Aaron Fox has. Shea is really doing it all with very kind of mediocre, not a mediocre surrounding cast, but not great like weapons. And when SGA gets those weapons, those assist numbers are going to rise. They're going to not be able to double team him because the Heat sent a lot of doubles at SGA tonight, and he still made them pay. He had 27 points tonight. He was super efficient. I think it was 9 to 15 from the floor. He was just fantastic tonight. It just wasn't enough, unfortunately. Ended up losing by 14. Whenever we don't have Al Horford, you notice because Bam Adebayo murdered us tonight. Any night we don't have Al Horford, you can expect the other team's center to potentially put up a 20-20 game. I love Isaiah Roby. I think he's been a really good bright spot for this team this season. I think he just kind of projects more as a power forward. He's super young. I think he's only 23 or 24 years old. He's only 6'8". He doesn't have a lot of muscle mass compared to one of the top 5 centers in the NBA in Bam Adebayo. And Bam just made him pay tonight. It happens. When Al Horford's in this lineup, it's much harder for centers to get going, although Jared Allen the other day, actually just yesterday, did have a fantastic game against Al Horford. This team kind of just struggles against bigs, and that struggle is very much highlighted when Al Horford's off the floor. Yeah. I think Isaiah Roby projects more as a 4, although I do have to applaud him for how he played tonight. He played really well. Lou Dort locked down Jimmy Butler on defense. He really, really struggled on offense. He's been very up and down since starting really hot to start the season. I think he's just kind of hitting that slump. He'll be fine. He's never going to be I don't know if he'll ever be like a 40% three-point shooter, but I have absolute confidence he can be like a consistent 35%. He's just kind of struggled with his shot. It's like I said, he started really, really hot, and he's kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. He'll be fine. Basically had a good game tonight. It just wasn't enough. The Heat are a good team. Duncan Robinson had 6 threes too, which was ridiculous. Moving on beyond that game, Hornets Jazz. I think really just this game shows why I consider the Jazz a contender. I think I'm fully ready to say that. With the way they've been playing, the dominant stretches they've shown, the talent that they have, the coaching that they have, I think it's hard to say anything other than that they are a contender at this point. Really, the only argument is star power, but when you see them have dominant stretches like they had against the Hornets in the second half of today's game, I think it's impossible to say that they aren't a contender. At least they seem like a contender at this point. It's like, obviously they could have like a second half collapse. We've seen it happen before, but this Jazz team just feels too consistent for that. It feels like they're really well coached. Like I said, they have really great personnel, and this Jazz team just finds your weaknesses and absolutely exposes them. Like tonight, the Hornets cannot guard the perimeter, and the Jazz made them pay from the perimeter. I think Georges Niang was like 6 of 6 or 7 of 7 from 3. He just went berserk out of nowhere, and the Jazz made the Hornets pay every time that they touched the ball or a shooter was left open beyond the arc. On the Hornets side of the ball, prayers up to Gordon Hayward. Hope he's okay. I believe he re-aggravated a hand injury. He's been playing up to an all-star level while we were talking about all-stars with SGA earlier. Gordon Hayward is a guy who has garnered some all-star consideration. I don't think he'll end up making the game, but he's gotten a lot of consideration for it. He's been played really well this season, and I hope he gets well soon. Trailblazers Suns, really just the story of this game is Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker is also going to be an all-star. If not him, then Chris Paul. I would probably lean giving it to Devin Booker if I had to choose one of the two. He's really, really good. He made the Blazers look like fools tonight. Absolutely destroyed them all over the court. The Blazers just couldn't stop him. No one on the Blazers roster could, and they played really poorly tonight. It's going to happen. Every good team has bad games, especially when they're dealing with as many injuries as they are. Bulls Rockets. I think this game also shows that Zach LaVine should be an All-Star. Really, I think we're just finding a lot about who the All-Star reserves are going to be when they're announced. If you're watching it in Eastern time zone, maybe Central, depending on when I get this video up, because my upload time is garbage. Then the All-Star reserves come out today. If you're watching on the West Coast, then they come out tomorrow, at least when this video comes out. Maybe some of you are watching in the morning because you're not up at 2 a.m. like I am every night. But either way, when the All-Star reserves are announced tonight/tomorrow, Zach LaVine should be on that list. He has been amazing, and there is no reason in my mind to not make him an all-star, because it's not even like he's putting up really good numbers. He's averaging near 30 points per game. It's not even like he's putting up those numbers on a bad team. This team's in the playoffs. After tonight, the Hornets lost. The Bulls are the 8th seed, and they've been really, really good this season. Deal with a lot of injuries. Wendell Carter's been in and out of the lineup. Lauri Markkanen's been in and out of the lineup, and Zach LaVine has kept this team afloat every single time. They've had some great play from veterans like Thaddeus Young, Garrett Temple, but Zach LaVine is the motor behind this Bulls team, and he is the reason they're so good. So Zach LaVine should be an all-star. I don't think that's a question. And on the Rockets side of the ball, this team's just not good without Christian Wood. They're just not. He is their team pretty much. So I need him to come back soon, because while the Rockets losing technically helps the Thunder out because we have their draft pick. If it's top 4, then we don't get that pick. So I would prefer if they're at like that 5 spot. And so if Christian Wood could come back and help them win a couple more games, I would really like that. Finally, we get to Grizzlies Mavericks. This game, there's not much to talk about here. John Morant had a good game. I don't see him end up being a all-star when the reserves are announced. I think he just had a too busy or too slow of a start to the season. He's going to make a ton of all-star games in his career anyways, but he had 22, 9, and 4 tonight. Good game from him, just not enough in a 10-point loss to the Mavericks. And Luka, 21, 7, 5. He was named the All-Star starter over Dame. Dame will be announced an All-Star reserve tomorrow. Shout out to Luka for earning that spot. Jalen Brunson, really good tonight. I love him as a player. I think he's a really solid backup point guard, a guy that any team would like to have, and he showed it out tonight. And Tim Hardaway Jr. kind of just got buckets. This is a good win for the Mavericks, who have been kind of up and down all season, especially without Kristaps Porzingis, who out of nowhere, seemingly, kind of started to surface in trade rumors earlier. There was this post from some reporter with Bleacher Report saying that Kristaps Porzingis could reportedly be traded, or that the Mavericks are at least kind of gauging interest from other teams. I'd be very, very surprised if he was traded at least this season, maybe in the off season if the Mavericks really disappoint for the rest of the year in the second half of the season. But this season, I'd be shocked if he was traded by the deadline, because last season was his first year. There's no way they're going to only give him 1.5 years after committing all that money to him. And it seems like him and Luka get along. It seems like they like playing with each other, unless there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't see as fans. It seems like they like playing with each other, although I don't think they would make any moves without consulting Luka first. You do not want to piss off a generational talent like Luka, and if they trade one of his best friends, a player he really likes playing with in Kristaps Porzingis, unless it makes that team significantly better to where Luka can't even complain, then Luka's going to be pissed. And the last thing you want to do, like I said, is piss off a generational talent. So if Kristaps does get moved, it'll be because Luka wants him to get moved. And I just don't see Luka or the organization wanting that, at least at this point in time, especially when the Mavericks are starting to turn around their season. They're 14-15 now. They're starting to work their way back up into the playoffs. I think the Mavericks are going to be in the playoffs by the end of the season. When you have Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis and some of the supporting guys, like I mentioned, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Brunson, Maxi Kleber, I don't see this Mavericks team not making the playoffs. I think that they're going to end up taking a spot from someone else. It's just to be determined who they take that spot from. So with that being said, those were all the games tonight. Only 6 games. It felt like a lot more. I think it was because they were all blowouts. But yeah, so I will see y'all tomorrow, probably with a video on the All-Star reserves. I didn't make one for the starters because I felt like most of those spots were pretty self-explanatory, save for one of the guard spots in the East and West. I felt like the front courts were pretty much determined. So I didn't end up making one for the starters, but for the reserves, I definitely want to make a video. If not, as soon as they get announced, maybe I'll, or honestly, maybe I could even like live stream as they get announced. If you're at the end of this video and that's something you'd like to see, let me know. Maybe I could do it on Twitter at 3_cone, or I could do it on YouTube. I don't know. I've never tried streaming on YouTube, so maybe I'll tinker with that tomorrow. But yeah, so I'll probably drop a video on that. If SGA does make it, there will be some celebratory video too, probably. If he doesn't make it, you'll probably see me rant. So if you want to see either of those things, drop a subscribe, like this video. If you made it this far, drop me an SGA as an all-star in the comments to let me know you made it here. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Real one, say it back.